I'd like to call the King George County Board of Supervisors to order Tuesday, May 7th, 2024 for our regular meeting. Mr. Stroud, will you please do the invocation?
Heavenly Father, as we gather here this evening, we welcome you to join us and ask you to help guide us into the address of county business. We're grateful to live in this country that you brought into existence and acknowledge your involvement in providing the freedom of community. We ask that you continue to bless us to defeat our adversaries and try to destroy what you have created. We ask you to keep your hand on our citizens and employees, keep them safe, help them prosper within your will. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda for the Board of Supervisors or the Service Authority? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have Delegate Hillary Pugh, the 67th District House Delegate member here. She's coming to give us a bit of an update, and we appreciate so much that you came up to King George to see us.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir. I'm really a loud talker, but I'll get close to the mic just to be sure. Thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to give an update, a recap as best I could on our General Assembly session, but this is a little abridged because we're not done yet. So as I said, when we kind of first started this process, we have a long way to go and a short time to get there. Now we have a short way to go and a short time to get there, but we still have a little bit of work to do. But just wanted to take the opportunity to give you an update on how things went in the House of Delegates side and what we did in terms of my position as your delegate for King George. I'm the delegate for the 67th District, which encapsulates all of King George County. We voted on more than 2,000 bills this session, which is our 60-day session, on an assortment of issues facing the Commonwealth, everything from education to economic development, from school safety to mental health, Veterans Affairs, and certainly the list goes on. I heard from a lot of folks and a lot of constituents, even here in King George, on very specific issues regarding cost of goods, workforce, wage pay, small business support, farming, social media regulation, and natural resources, historic preservation. Lots of issues affecting both our community and the Commonwealth at whole. I was privileged to serve on AG, the Committee on Ag and Chesapeake and Natural Resources, as well as the Finance Committee. I also was appointed to serve on a couple of Comfrey committees, one regarding blue catfish and the other the sales tax holiday that we're all familiar with that normally happens in August that we work towards to get passed. So there's certainly some specific issues too for District 67 that I championed regarding oyster restoration, before and after school programs, as well as soil and water conservation districts being able to implement educational programs, certain things that are very specific to our area in the Northern Neck, King George, and part of Caroline. I had several bills that were very successful that went through, but I'll just give you a small synopsis of the ones that were not successful. We'll end on the high note. But championed a couple of bills that didn't make it through, some of which I think we'll bring back and we'll bring back again. I had a bill regarding small business and the process that a small business has to go to in order to get the required information from state agencies, just to streamline that process so the small business knows what fines and fees they may have to encounter. And that bill unfortunately didn't make it, but we saw a lot of things regarding small businesses that were certainly important as Virginia champions being business and economic growth leader. I also had a bill regarding a specific county and voting precincts that would have streamlined the process for Department of Elections, and a bill regarding FOIAs for minors, trying to create greater privacy rules for FOIA, a bill on Rappahannock River and Chesapeake Bay tributaries for aquafauna, and then a bill that originated out of this county specifically regarding disorderly conduct, to help local law enforcement and the local school division to give them more power back for disorderly conduct in our schools, which was something I really appreciate, just being able to take bills forward that are a direct result of what you all are seeing in your community. Unfortunately, that bill did not pass, but did gain a lot of news, and sometimes that's also important just to bring issues forward. We did have a great bunch of bills that did pass, and they have been signed by the governor, which I'm very proud to present. We had a bill that also came from a locality regarding larceny and embezzlement cases, which allows those crimes to be charged in the home of the residence of the victim and not just the accused. We see a growing cause of concern on computer crimes that happen, where people spoof their locations and you can't figure out where actually they may be committing the crime. So by allowing the crime to be charged at the home of the victim or the home county or city of the victim, then you're still allowed to prosecute that crime. So it streamlined that process, and the governor has since signed it, which is great. We also did a bill for the Department of Forensic Science regarding privacy, to modernize the privacy rules of the Department of Forensic Science. If a person has been accused of a crime, that their DNA has to remain private, or if a victim has their DNA profile on file, then that has to remain private. We also modernized it by doing things like allowing emails and not just carbon copies or faxes to be allowed, and transferring data from your sheriff's department to the Department of Forensic Science. And that bill passed and has been signed. I'm proud to represent 3 state parks in District 67. And we introduced a legislation which got rolled in to another delegates, which created an opportunity for our conservation officers to enroll in the Valors program, which is the retirement program. Conservation officers are the only officers, law enforcement officers, that are not a part of Virginia's retirement plan. And so this bill would include them into Valors. And so that bill got as far as it's ever gotten in the General Assembly. So certainly was very proud of the work that we did in order to be more competitive and make sure that we are maintaining our conservation officers at our state parks. We also championed a resiliency bill to assist the Commonwealth in crafting resiliency efforts for floods and for localities in order to streamline grant opportunities from the federal government and the state government to assist in any sort of resiliency efforts that are going on locally. And that bill also passed. It creates 4 additional positions as a chief resiliency officer, instead of just having it all fall under the Secretary of Natural Resources. Finally, I have a bill that I coin as the Right to Fish bill, which also was generated locally. And currently there's no penalty or consequence if you inhibit or harass or in some way hinder a waterman from doing their job while they are on the water. And so we passed a bill that's called the Right to Fish bill that would create a penalty if you distract, destroy the property of, harass a waterman while they are doing their work. It also provides for restitution, which was a really big deal, which we really wanted to include. So if you go out and cut crab pots or destroy a boat or cut nets or something, now you can be prosecuted for that crime. And that has also been signed by the governor. So lots of great news that I can report on my own personal bills and committees. Certainly grateful for bipartisan efforts by the General Assembly and the governor signing off on those, and my friends in the Senate who are so gracious in helping me get those through the General Assembly. Some of them here tonight, one of them specifically here tonight. So as you all, I know, under budget negotiations and talks, so is the state. And that's where we'll go back on Monday in order to hopefully get a budget signed. We went back to reconvene session about a month ago in order to sign a budget and look at the governor's amendments and vetoes, and we did that, but we unfortunately did not come to a compromise on the budget. But I'm very hopeful and optimistic on how the process has gone, and I think the House and the Senate and the administration all recognized that everyone was too far apart, and they really need to have more conversation and come together on common grounds, because that is what the people need and expect. So we'll go back on Monday really to have those budget conversations. I was very specific about what I wanted to vote for in the Virginia budget, and voted for those things and made sure if they came up as line amendments to vote for them. Things like Project Ceasefire, grants for SROs, police officer recruitment, increased teacher pay, STEM programming, broadband access, CTE, workforce development, all while not increasing taxes on Virginians, which is important. The main objective continues to be that as we go into Monday, improve our schools, keep our communities safe, allow for a robust business environment, and do that while being fiscally responsible and prudent. So we'll return on Monday, and I'll continue to provide updates in order to provide that to Virginians. And I just want to say I'm so proud to represent this district, and certainly very honored to do so, and hope that we can always have a dialogue. So if there's ever anything that I can do or my office can be of help with, that's what we're here to do. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out. If there's anything that we can do on our side, we're happy to do it. So thank you all for what you do and for the opportunity to serve as well. I'm happy to answer any questions too, if I can, or if you all have any. I know there's a long list, and so I don't want to hold up your evening as well. So but happy to answer anything.
Well, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Is there any comments from the board?
Grateful for your service, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
You
So
get
great
back-
to see you all.
You can get back before dark.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thank you. Public comment for the King George Board of Supervisors and the King George Service Authority. The comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so they can be properly included in the public record. First, we have Reverend Shaw.
James Shaw, James Madison District, columnist for Northern Next Sentinel. Tonight's hat, which is becoming a popular thing here, green for gumshoe. Now, the word gumshoe comes from the old detective novels from the middle of the last century. And that's what I want to thank you as supervisors for providing that kind of opportunity. For you see, someone has to watch the watchers. And a great thanks for you guys for now listing all of the FOIA requests that are coming through that are putting a undue stress on the staff, have been, and hopefully this will eventually kind of get tamped down as people start seeing what's kind of going on. For you see, this is transparency of transparency. And I thank you again for providing this so that we can see that others are looking or whatever, and what they are looking at and what they are purposely perhaps missing or not pursuing. And so I'd like to, again, thank you for what you've done in that regard. This is part of what I call the King George Renaissance, and I pray that that will continue to the benefit of this generation, future generations, of all King George citizens going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Reverend Davis.
Roman Davis, Dalvin District. Thank you, Board, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. If you know anything about it, you watch the news, you know that our nation, we're in a very battle for our very soul of America. Look at the news at all, you'll know that things are not getting any better out there. Verses I want to read to you tonight are not verses of discouragement, they're actually verses of encouragement, because I've read the last chapter. I know that Jesus wins in the end. But the Bible talks about the Apostle Paul writes in Timothy, his second epistle to Timothy. He writes to him, it's about 66 AD, and it's not long before 67 or 68 that he will be beheaded for what he believes. And Apostle Peter will also be crucified in 67. And so these verses are verses that concern this dispensation called the church age. He's writing this pastoral epistle to show what's going to happen to the end of the age that we are in now, the church age. And so he says in chapter 3 of 2 Timothy, this know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. Now there's been plenty of perilous times in the past. America's had some perilous times in the past. But this has to do with the church, what's going to happen at the end of the church age. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, and unholy, without natural affections, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. Look at our college campuses today, you'll see a lot of that going on. Amen. Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. Where do you find the average believer today on Sunday? Maybe not in church, but maybe lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. Ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. In this dispensation that we're in, this was written probably during the time of what we would call the notorious bloodbath, where Christians were soaked in oil, wrapped to post, and set on fire and used for a light post in the cities of Rome. And the leader at that time, of course, Nero, was not very compassionate on Christians. And I'm not sure that our nation is the way that we're responding to or acting towards the Jewish nation, towards the Jew in our country, and towards Christians. They're not headed in the same direction. So I'm here to say thank you for the opportunity to read the scripture. God bless you. Amen. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chloe Hodges, is it Hodges? From Energy Bright?
Yes, sir. My name's Chloe Hodges. I'm here today on behalf of Energy Right. Energy Right is a nonprofit organization that's helping localities across the state of Virginia navigate the clean energy landscape. We believe in an all of the above energy approach, and we focus on doing energy the right way, which means focusing on the local level and prioritizing conservative ideals in order to get good projects passed. We want to make sure that solar projects and other energy projects that are coming to localities are good neighbors and providing value to localities. So I'm here today primarily just to introduce myself, and I want to be a resource to all of you. If you ever need anything from us or have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I've met some of y'all before, so it's been great to connect with some of you, and I'd like to connect with all of you. And if you or your constituents have any questions, please let me know. We're happy to be a resource. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lavelle?
Hi, my name is Ana Maria Lobo. I live in Presidential Lakes. I would like to thank you for your service to the community. I know that it's only been 4 months for some of you. I also want to tell you that King George problems are not your fault. These are problems that have been with us for a long time. It's so easy to spend other people's money. I also want to say that hope this year the taxes are not too high, since they have been up to 40% since 2019. I will also like to know if we are paying down the principal of the county's loans, as well as paying the interest. It's very important that the loans are paid off. It will be nice if they have a surplus at the end of the year, please. Thank you. I didn't write too much.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to have public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Dines, is there anyone online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Board members, anything be read in them? Mr. Sullins.
Yes, sir, thanks. This is from Mr. Adam Simonoff, Dahlgren District. He says preschool early childhood development teaches people how to get along with others who are different from you. In that theme, Ambassador Ralph Bunche worked for Middle East Peace and the United Nations. The King George High School in his name stands for teaching people how to build community with people different from you. Our country has a responsibility to maintain the upkeep of taxpayer-funded public property from blight and raise a community of neighbors that care about each other as equals, no matter how diverse we are. I support a King George County budget that restores the former Ralph Bunche High School as a civil rights museum facility for public learning and tourism, and that also refurbishes the former King George Middle School site for centralized public preschool with federal and state supplemental funding as one public school education construct project, PSECP. Out of taxpayer respect, there must be cost controls and processes to ensure our public property never falls into the disrepair as Dahlgren Wayside, St. Anthony's, Ralph Bunche, and the former middle school did. It's wrong to neglect public property and then ask for even more tax money when it's often cheaper to perform maintenance than to start over. That's it.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll bring back public comment, reports to the members of the board. Lee?
Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. I'll keep it rather short. I did have a chance to speak with some constituents over the past couple weeks about some ideas they had for the board. Nothing to really bring forward yet. It's very premature or preliminary, but it was a great idea. I think something to bring towards the board. So I'm doing a little bit more investigating when it comes to that. But I appreciate everybody coming out this evening and giving their comments this morning or this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks to everyone who spoke. I have had, I'll say this because I know this is on a community level, but I have had several constituents reach out to me and just ask me where I stand and where this board stands on Israel and our support of Israel and the Israeli people. And I speak for myself, and I know I speak for several others, and they'll probably echo that I stand with the people of Israel. I stand with the Jewish nation. I stand with those that are our allies and those that are on the right side of history. And there's never been a time, you can go back in history as far as you want, that those people haven't been living on that land. It never was a Palestinian country. There's never been such a thing. That's the terms used for a place they used to call Samaria, and a place they used to call Judea. But they've changed the names to things like West Bank and things like that in order to erase those things that are historically accurate. And I stand by those. And I stand by really as living like human beings and treating human beings kindly. I don't think that is a race issue in any kind. I think it's a heart issue with our country, that the way we treat people is just sometimes just despicable. And everything starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with us being the difference that we want to see and treating people the way we want to be treated. It's the simplest rule there is, to love. And I'd like to see that more even in our own community and more of that community. Like people always talk about the way King George used to be in the 80s. I get that a lot in the 90s when it was just like this real community feel. And, it starts with you being that. It starts with you driving down the road and waving at everybody you see the way they used to do. You can't wait for them to do it. You got to do it. And they might reject you, and it's okay. Thank you, Pastor Shaw. Thank you for speaking to the email that I did reply to Adam's email. In case, because I've heard that complaint as well about the old middle school. It's one of the things I ran on. If you still have one of my brochures, it was taking care of King George assets. It was one of the highest things on there because we've watched the buildings fall away. The old middle school is not repairable at this point in time. It'd be cheaper to tear it down and start over again, and it's a shame. It really, really is. Ralph Bunche is a part of our history, and so is that old high school over there. Mr. Cobb went to school over there. Your husband, and he told me that. He goes, that school is just as important as the other one, and it is. But we have let that one fall as well, and it's a shame. And now I hear that we've had bids as much as $20 million to repair that courthouse out there. $20 million to repair a building that's been sitting there that we haven't taken care of. And I love that building. And I always tell people all the time, I said, before I put $20 million in that building, it'll become a splash park. You know what I mean? Where kids can come play, because that's what will happen to it before we can spend our money doing that. It's a shame. But I can tell you that we're going to do all we can to ensure that the assets of our county are kept up. And that's why we're doing our due diligence on the fire station. That's why we're doing our due diligence on the elementary school and the preschool, because we want to make sure these aren't things that we're doing. They're just going to be a Band-Aid. And then 5 years later, you need to add more room onto these things. We want to make sure that we're planning successfully for the future. So down the line, that maybe we have buildings that we're growing into, as opposed to buildings that we're moving into that are at full capacity as soon as we get there. And we're having a lot of issues with those things. I do have one motion to make, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
To make the motion to add Brett Moffitt to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes, sir. I'd like to nominate Miss Elodie Sheljanaga to the Smoot Library Board.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you, sir.
Sure. So on 2 May, I attended the Economic Development Authority Business Appreciation event at the Back Porch Winery. And that was a really good time. Got to meet some of the local business owners that I hadn't met before. And, you know, really enjoyed that. On 3 May, I attended a meeting with the senior advisor, and I mentioned this at the last meeting for those that already heard it, but I attended a meeting with our senior advisor, Mr. Rasavi, and Ms. Cobb, and the county treasurer, Mr. Randy Jones, where I learned that we still had $35 million in a checking account. Our previous director of finance didn't have a schedule for paying bills, and that created a problem because clearly if you don't know when your bills are being paid, you don't know how much money you need to have in your account. So those two individuals have done an amazing job, as you notice if you've been watching the budget meetings and such. But Mr. Rasavi and Ms. Cobb and their team, they've done an amazing job with really straightening things out. We now have a schedule for paying bills. They know how to budget. They have processes in place. And really, I want to thank both of you again. Can't thank you enough for that. Also, I have a meeting tomorrow with Mr. Jones, our treasurer, and appreciate his willingness to work towards investing our money wisely and putting it to work for the citizens of the county, as it should. So we're making some amazing progress, and I want the citizens to know that. And then last night, I attended the Farm Bureau Legislative Affairs Dinner, and that was at the estate of Whitehall. Again, it was their last year and again this year, and that was another great event. I have an affinity for the people that know how to and do grow our food and appreciate them. So, and I would also like to thank everybody for the comments they made tonight and those in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stroud, Mr. Sully.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank everybody for the public comments that you made tonight. It's always great to be involved. Thank you for that. I also want to thank the folks that came out tonight to join us. Crowd's a little bit thin tonight, but looking outside, it's a break in the rain and the temperature is still nice. So I don't blame the folks that are out walking. I wish I was there too. As far as report, got to go see the King George High School musical Newsies this past week. If you didn't get to see that, you missed a good one. Those kids worked their butts off and did a really wonderful job. So, and I don't like musicals. It was really good. Got to go to a STEM event at the high school where the Sheriff's Department and the Fire and Rescue Department, along with some of the students, presented some real world applications for drone usage. So that was really cool. Got to meet with Mr. Hicks of Gerald Properties, and we discussed the Walnut Hill development that they're trying to do. So they made a few changes there, and I'm assuming that we'll probably see them again in the near future for their application process. But I think you'll like what they've got to say. So good stuff. Obviously, we've had multiple budget meetings along the way, and I think we did a good job. I really appreciate Ms. Cobb and Mr. Rizavi for the help and guiding us through that process. Outstanding job on y'all's part, so thank you for that. Got to attend a George Washington Regional Commission meeting. Also had some discussions with local residents about the VDOT plans for 301. I know there's a lot of concerns out there for that. And I'm assuming we've got some more stuff coming in the future. I see Mr. Bills here in the audience. I want to give some kudos. I apologize, I don't have the details. My friend emailed me the information at work and I forgot to send it to my work account. But Warren Veazey contacted me today to say that he had reached out, I want to say last week, about some potholes on the road, and your crew was out there just like in no time, and I think within a day or two it was fixed. So he just wanted to make sure that you guys got some public kudos on what a great job that you did. So thank you for that. Mr. Stroud and I got to meet with a local resident who's got some cool ideas for bringing business opportunities into the county, some technical business development. More to follow on that. Right now, it's not even a PowerPoint. It's an idea, but I think it's got some traction that we can take advantage of and maybe bring some stuff for the county that'll help reduce taxes. And then finally, want to thank the EDA for the appreciation event that you did last week, and also apologize. I had planned to attend that event, and then I went back and looked at the flyer, double checked the time and location, and realized that there was an RSVP associated with it, and I didn't do that. I didn't want to crash the party. So thank you for doing that, and my apologies for not attending. And that's all.
Thank you. Ms. Bender?
Thank you very much. First of all, not to reiterate, attended a lot of other meetings that my colleagues mentioned, but I'm not going to bring them up. What I want to do is thank some folks. I know it keeps saying, but it really, Ms. Cobb, Mr. Rasavi, we wouldn't have got a budget the way it looked at without their help. And a lot of the changes Ms. Cobb with Norm's help have brought to our budgeting process and our procedures. And I will at least say on the Service Authority, when I need things done, I just go over to finance and they get done real quickly and in a good manner. So I want to thank them. I want to thank Chris. I heard even though the VFW Family Day wasn't as well attended, the people that went did enjoy themselves. I unfortunately had another commitment and couldn't attend. So thank you and your staff for putting that together. Went to the drone demonstration. I always have one myself. It was nice to see some young people out there, and these are many different technologies that kids can have a career in, and they're offering a class over the summer. It has a little bit of a price tag, but kids it's an overnight camp that they can learn how to do drones and esports, which is an up and coming thing. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, so this weekend I attended the VACO Board of Directors, and one of the big things, we went through the legislative program, especially a lot of things that Ms. Delegate Pugh-Kent mentioned, but one of the biggest things I wanted to bring out, and was reiterated, that it didn't pass this time, but it'll probably be back, and that's about land use. So there is a big push by lobbyists, especially in the solar industry, and even data centers, to take away local authority in decision-making. So I just want to make that aware, because the bill will probably come up again. So just to put that on your radar. And we had a robust discussion about the JLARC study on education and how localities kind of be the fall guy for underfunding of education, because the JLARC study talked about all these improvements, but they haven't been actually, I don't know about consideration, but it comes with a hefty price tag to localities unless maybe possibly looking at how the tax structure is in Virginia, maybe overhauling it. So I just wanted to bring a couple of those things to your awareness, and I thank everybody for coming and talking. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, members of the board. Appreciate that. The consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I guess we should go back to that since there are warrants on there by roll call. Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
And I am aye too. Constitutional officers? Sheriff? Thank you. Ms. Puckett? Mr. Jones? Okay.
All right. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda for the Board of Directors?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
And I'm going to quiz myself. Robotham? I got it right. Aye, thank you. Chair votes aye, motion carries. Back to you. All right, that's right. It's now my turn. Sorry. Still getting the hang of this. All right. So today for the Board of Directors, a lot of stuff going on. We don't really have any public presentations or action items, but we're going to go to this discussion items. And Mr. Dines, do you have some of those photos there? So we had a water main break, and Mr. Eisenbeis, can you come up and explain some of these photos? So we had a major water main break. It's in an area where there's a huge culvert, and it washed out and left our line exposed. And go back to the first one so you can see the beginning. And Mr. Beal might be able to give some more insight too. Keep going back. I gave 4 pictures, so. Okay, so this is the first picture. Mr. Eisenbeis, this is what at 6 a.m. they came to. Can you give a little more insight on this?
This is actually the second repair.
The second repair, that is correct.
April 30th, we got a call at 7 p.m. They had no water pressure in the county. Checked everything, checked wells, went everywhere. We had just happened to stop at this spot, heard water running, found this in the middle of the night. Same split. All the other trees that you see down are what we cut in this picture from the first time. All the trees were actually covering the pipe, and it was actually bowed to the ground. It had washed out 5 foot underneath the pipe. That exposed water pipe and exposed telephone line there. All this work was done with flashlights, headlamps, and by hand. No machinery we could get down in there and do it. That was a 10-hour repair the first time with our entire crew. Got that back together, and then on Monday we came in, an additional 10 feet of the wall had fallen in, which crushed all the supports and pulled the pipe apart again. And then
Go to the second picture, Mr. Dines.
so this time we braced it up, held it up in place. VDOT had their crew in today. We have filled it up to the pipe. This is a slip joint pipe. It's not a glued pipe. So it has to be repaired back to its original joints. We're 220-foot sections. So we'll be going back to the section on your right and back to the section on the left tomorrow, which requires another 100 foot of clearing of trees to get a machine in there and clearing all the riprap and everything from the left side to get in there. And we'll replace the entire sections of pipe to get rid of that temporary repair we have right there.
Can you go to the third picture? So there's a little, if you notice there on that picture, the dirt is on the wall, and you look at the picture from today, a lot of the dirt is gone from under the wall, and that's from all the rain today. And there's a nice little cave being formed on the side. Can you go to the last picture? Why I want to bring this up is VDOT was out there this morning repairing it, but if you notice there, that guardrail, that's 3. And that's how close, and the high school's on the other side. That is how close it is to the road. So, you know, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and there was a lot of trees there, correct, Mr. Eisenbeis?
Yes.
So, I mean, I think our crew and VDOT did a really nice job today repairing our crew especially for getting out there. And on the first day, I know there was some scuttlebutt about the KG alert. Ms. Southall and Sheriff Giles and myself met with Mr. Rasavi, and we came up with an after-hour plan of action that we'll be implementing. And a lot of it is just not knowing what processes you have to fix and put in place. But we're going to have a process now to be able to have a better after-hours ability to send out at least an update saying, hey, there's a water main break, and then what anticipated time that it can be repaired. But I will say to Mr. Eisenbeis and his staff, they were right out there right away trying to fix the problem and get people's water back, and probably sending out numerous KG alerts wasn't first on their list. And I do not have access to KG alert. So we now have a process in place to help with that. And I do really appreciate all of our staff helping with that, including Ms. Southall, who came up with some good ideas. So do you want to explain anything more about this picture? Or
Actually, the first leak we had, just finding this leak was the hard part. We were down to 20% in the Perkins Tower. We were down to 40% in the Arnold's Tower. We were at the critical point, so KG alerts were the last thing on our mind.
Does anybody have any questions? Since we have Mr. Eismeiss up here. I know there was a lot of comments out there and about, so I think they did a great job, but this just to show you what kind of repairing you can't plan for everything's. And Mr. Beal, can you come up for a second, Mr.? Do you have a plan of action how to keep that maintained, or is that?
Well, like Mr. Eisenbach said, the outfall has been built up to the water main now. I believe the county can come in, replace a pipe, fill over top of the water line, and then we'll fill it back up to the original grade and stabilize the outfall.
Thank you. Do you have any, Mr.
Yes,
Stryker?
sir. So the water's coming through that large drain pipe, right?
Yeah, I believe there's also a second pipe that's not in the picture.
Yeah, it fell down.
And then it goes over the water line.
Right.
So why don't we extend that big pipe to go over the water line? That way it doesn't wash out again. It is?
Yeah.
We're going to extend it over?
Yeah, we're putting another joint.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Does anybody else have any questions on it? Thank you, both of you.
Thank
Next, as part of my update, Mr. Rasavi and I have been working on a lot, especially the financials. After the budget is done, he's been digging deep into the service authority. So, Mr. Rasavi, can you give some highlights?
Well, between you and TC giving me plenty of reading material on the service authority, I went back and I've looked through some of the financials and so forth, and a lot of the information that's been provided. I went back and read minutes during probably almost back to the beginning of the service authority. And I've spoke with Mark and Bowden, and I've also spoke to Mr. Eisenbach a little bit, and I'll be probably spending a little bit more time in June over getting some more information from Patty. But one thing that seems to stick out to me is that we identify a lot of problems that need to be addressed, but then for some reason they just seem to fade away and we move on to other things. So Bowden has provided us with a list of specific items and equipment. So a lot of these things should be simply fundamental to running a public utility system. Not having chemicals on site, that's unheard of. You know roughly what chemicals you use. You should have a storage facility there so that it's a seamless process to make sure that the treatment and so forth takes place in a proper manner. I do want to talk with John and others in Bowden, and we're going to try to set up a meeting. I think Jackie's worked on that for me to sit down, and so I can get a little bit more detailed information on some of those things. But as you all have talked during the months I've been here with you about the importance of economic development and so forth, I can tell you the fundamental aspect is your public utility system. And I think there are some just simple things that we can do to turn this around, and then look exactly what skill sets are needed in a general manager. Because it's not somebody with just engineering background and water and sewer background, but a lot of it is financial. You may be able to identify the problems, but then if you don't pursue the solution of funding those, then it just gets progressively worse. So I'm going to look in a little bit more detail some of those things, and I'd need some more information to go out, and maybe I can get John to take me out to the various plants and we can look at some of those things. And I think one other thing that I've talked to Levita about is I think we can streamline, and I think she's working on the procurement for some of our departments, because some of the procurement can be done with not going through, just getting quotes and different things. And I think it's important that the staff and that understand that, and that we minimize the issues when you have a problem in a public sewer or water system like the fellows just showed us that they dealt with. Those matters have to be dealt with promptly. You can't wait around for a week or so to decide what to do. So I will prepare a report with the chairman on some recommended courses of action. And I think it can be turned around, but everybody that I've spoke to in the county so far is uniformly, they just shake their head when you say service authority. So, but I think that it can be turned around. It just takes some patience and focusing on what needs to be done, and then we need to follow through.
Does anybody have questions? Mr. Wasabi? One other thing I want to bring out is we've had many meetings with DEQ to kind of smooth the waters with our regulatory partners, including those funding the ARPA grant, the $16 million. And thanks to heads up from Mr. Wasabi and Bryce Young, we were going to be able to add the sludge press into the ARPA funds. And I appreciate them thinking of that and asking DEQ, can we add that in? And the ARPA funds are something that Senator Stewart championed a couple years ago to get a $16.9 million of the ARPA funds to make some repairs to the service authority. And that's how Perkins Corner is going to be decommissioned and the water and sewer lines upgraded. But we've been working and having lots of meetings, and I think we're on a path. And I know Mr. Wasabi took my 60-page document, and I probably bored him overnight. And we've tried to come up with a combo document that's a little less than 60 pages. So that is everything I have for the service authority, just a lot of things. And we do have a process in place for the KG alerts. Does anybody have any questions? No.
I have a question. Where's the 60-page document? Is there where we can see it?
I'm going to chop it up a little bit before I send it out, because it's got a lot of, as Mr. Wasabi says, it's got a lot of, I was just taking all my notes and putting it, so I got to trim it to get rid of the extra fluff so I don't bore you to death. I might be able to put you to sleep because I gave a lot of history, and as Mr. Wasabi knows, I like to give history. So
It starts in 1948.
Yeah, we're working December.
but yeah, I have a lot of duplications and different information that doesn't need to be in there 4 times. But I was trying to take all my notes and put them in categories. So,
Yeah.
But it did help him because my philosophy was I did all that work. It's a lot easier to give it to him so he doesn't have to repeat the work, and then he can go on where he wanted to look for based on that. So any more questions? All right. So that is all. One other thing I wanted to mention in this list, I know Mr. Eisenbeis has mentioned to me every day that we need a new excavator because our excavator is on its last legs. So as part of the Emboden list, Mr. Wasabi has asked, we're going to work with Emboden to highlight from the ultimate need today to the thing we can wait a little while so that it can be presented to the board and we can actually start making decisions to purchase some of these items so that we don't wait around to purchase them. But we don't have the money to buy everything, so to put it in a priority order. But the excavator should be one of the top things on the list because it's barely making it to the end. So that's all I have. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention one thing. Really appreciate you all getting to that because it was difficult to get that 16 million for the county, and nobody ever did anything with it until you all came along and have found the ways to utilize it. And that was specifically to fix some of these aging sewer systems. And apparently for most of the last 2 years, it just sat under Mr. Miller, as I understand it, and nothing got used. And if it wasn't committed, then it reverts back as of May 30th, I believe. So thank you all for working on that and getting it done.
I appreciate that because it was really close to not having it. So we made sure we got right on it. And I do have to give another shout out to Levita and her staff and how diligent they were to get the federal ID number that we had to get at the last minute to make that happen. So a lot of stuff was just not taken care of or addressed or paperwork filed. And so we've been working as it comes up on each thing that wasn't filed to get it filed. So and DEQ has been really good at working with us, because when I talked to them, I'm very honest. I said, I'm not somebody who would normally be doing this, but we're trying to do the right thing, so can you help us? And they're very helpful with being honest with them. So that is all I have. All right, then I'll go to the secondary. You want to do the secondary public comment altogether, Mr. Collins?
We have another one coming up.
Yeah, so we'll just combo them together.
We'll do, how about,
You want me to do mine now?
always, go ahead.
Okay.
By the agenda.
Well, I have a secondary public comment to address meeting business matters only for the Service Authority. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comments so that it can be properly recorded and included in the public record. Do I have anyone who would like to come up and? Anna Marie, you don't want to come up? Put you on the spot, sorry. Mr. Dines, do you have anybody online? And my colleagues have any further documentation from very quick typists? All right. With that being said, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion that the Board of Directors adjourn to Tuesday, May 21st, 2024 at 5:30 PM in the Robert H. Combs Boardroom.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, a motion properly second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion carries. The Service Authority is adjourned.
All righty. The King George Board of Supervisors, public hearing, VDOT Secondary 6-Year Plan. Mr. David Beal.
Good evening. David Beal, resident engineer for the Northern Neck with BDOT. I went through this presentation last month in the work session. I'll just run through it again for those that may not have been with us. And then I guess we'll open up the public hearing to comments. So this is the secondary 6-year plan. These are secondary routes, not primary routes. Secondary routes are numbered 600 and above, 599 and below are primary routes. So these are the secondary routes. It's a 6-year plan, so it starts in July of 24 with fiscal year 25, and it runs through fiscal year 3030. The funding comes from 2 different sources. One of those is telefees. Telefees are passed through from utility companies that pay right-of-way usage fees and redistributed for transportation projects throughout the Commonwealth. It's based on your population. And then the district grant for unpaved roads, that funding has to be used on existing state-maintained gravel roads to hard surface those. And those dollars are distributed to localities or allocated for paving hard surface roads in localities based on the mileage of roads that you have left over 50 vehicles per day. So telefees can be used on a lot of different things. The district grant for unpaved roads can only be used to hard surface existing state maintained gravel roads. That program is called the Rural Rustic Program. So when we're done, I'll sign the updated plan as well as the county administrator. These are the projects that are in the plan today. Prim Road, we actually finished last week, so we're waiting for some invoices to come in, and then we'll complete that and get it off. Any funds that are left over will just be carried forward to the next project. Dixon Lane, the funding for that becomes available this year. We'll start on that in the coming weeks. Bald Eagle is the next road that's prioritized. There we go. Currently, the funding for Bald Eagle runs out to fiscal year 28. I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to pull that in at least a year, maybe 2 years. We'll tighten up that estimate. We'll do some more survey and field work to see how much stone we actually have to add and how many cross pipes. The 590 number is just kind of a guesstimate. As we get closer to doing the work, we'll tighten up that number and hope that we can pull that in a couple of years and get on that a little sooner. The other two lines there, the countywide engineering and survey, and then the unpaved road funds, and that's just where we park the money for the out years that hadn't been allocated to a specific project. So scroll down just a little bit, you can see there's a couple $100,000 in the future unpaved road funds. So total unallocated funds are about $450,000. A little bit about the rural rustic program. Traditionally, the county has spent most of the telefees and the unpaved road funds on hard surfacing existing state maintained gravel roads. So these projects have to be an unpaved road already in the secondary system, so that it's not rural additions, it's rural rustic. They can't carry more than 1,500 vehicles per day, which none of yours do. It has to be identified as a priority line item in the secondary 6-year plan. It's predominantly for local traffic, and then we just make minor drainage improvements on these roads when we go to hard surface them. So we'll replace or upsize existing culverts if they need to be, grade the ditches, that sort of thing. Here's a list of all the unpaved roads in the county that are state maintained. The ones in yellow there are the ones that have more than 50 vehicles per day, which those are the ones we have to concentrate on with the unpaved road funds. If you want to do some of the others, you'd need to use the telefees. The ones with the Y in the secondary, in the 6-year improvement plan column are the ones we already talked about that are already on the list. If my area headquarters had a vote, which they don't, but I like to tell you what their thought is. They would vote for big timber, just the amount of traffic and the time we spend maintaining that. It's easier to maintain a hard surface than it is a gravel road. Canning Way, we talked about putting on the list a few years ago, and there was some public opposition to that from the residents there, and I don't know that that has changed. But the others are all fair game. Many of them are fair game, whatever you want to do. There is, since Bald Eagle is a couple years out, we have to update this plan every year. So one option that the county has is just not to add anything. And by the time we build Bald Eagle, you'll have more funding and you can prioritize something next spring if you're not ready to add something now. You don't lose any funding. You're not setting us back. You're not delaying any work being done. You're just delaying making a decision. There was some discussion with FAMPO and GWRC on a grant program, SS4A, Safe Streets for All, and that requires a 20% local match. So if they're successful in getting that grant, they'll probably be coming to you asking you for a match for that program. And the telefees in the secondary 6-year plan could be used as matching funds. So that's just an option of something, just a reason that you might want to bank some funds so you can make a decision later. But if you want to add something tonight, that's perfectly fine too. Any questions for me on any of that before we go further?
Yep. So, Mr. Let me read this and we'll get the questions. King George Board of Supervisors now hold a public hearing properly advertised to receive public input regarding the matter. The BOD has given us a presentation on the matter, and we will go to public comment, and then we'll come back to the members of the board. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. In order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak, please state your name and address for your comment. Upon completion of the public comment, bring the matter back to the board for consideration. Is there anyone that would like to come for public comment in regards to the public hearing on the 25 to 30 SSYP presentation? Seeing none, Mr. Dines, is there anyone online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any written comments? Seeing none. Mr. Davis, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I close the public comment.
Thank you, sir. So, yes, sir, if I could ask you a question. So were we talking about paving Big Timber? Is that one of the roads that you're talking about doing right now?
That's the one with the highest traffic volume on that list.
Now, you know, a lot of that traffic, just in speaking to some constituents over there, was really just due to construction that was going on around, you know, the past, you know, few years. Like it's like 20 to 50 construction vehicles passing through there was most of that, the increased traffic I think that people are seeing there. The other concern that I have is, and I'm not sure if this is the right terminology for this or not, but let me pull this up. Was what type of paving are we going to do? Is it going to be like the hard pack that was done on Prim that wears out and gets potholes in a matter of no time, or is it going to be more like the part of Prim that's blacktopped out by Maddox Creek Bridge? Because the hard pack just doesn't seem to last very long. That's why I'm asking.
The surface treatment, we did have some issues on Prim. We did that 2 years. We did half of it 2 years ago. Some of that came apart. And the second half that we did, we went back over all of it. So we believe we've rectified those issues. But the surface treatment for low volume roads, which anything under 400 and really even under 800 or 900 vehicles a day, that's the most effective, cost-effective way to maintain these roads. If we went to plant mix, which is what you're talking about, the hot mix asphalt, it's roughly 5 times the cost, and it's not feasible to maintain these roads in that condition.
All right. Thank you, sir.
It's what everybody wants.
Yeah, I understand.
All these 600 routes in the county, most all of them are surface treatment.
Yeah, I cut through 616 every day since I was a little kid, so yeah, I get it.
Right.
And it's always something new going on, right? Whether it's the kind of the loose gravel pack or whatever it is, but yeah. But that was the one concern I was getting from constituents over there is we're talking about the uptick in traffic, and most of the traffic that what they're hearing from what I'm getting over there is like it was mostly construction vehicles and dump trucks and things of that nature that caused a blip kind of like in the traffic that I don't know if it's still going on or not, but that's just what they've said to me.
Our counts were from 2022. I saw an email about that. I don't know what specific day in 2022 we counted on that road. So yeah, I mean, one thing we use for planning purposes is about 10 vehicles per day per house. So if there have been additional houses that are built, you know, that's something to consider. I think on Bald Eagle, that was a big thing. There are a bunch of houses that have been built on Bald Eagle, which, you know, and the faster people drive, the more traffic, it starts to washboard these gravel roads, and we start to get a lot of complaints on them.
Right. Thank you.
Bender?
So I was going to bring up Big Timber again because that's where there's an application for a solar project. So my concern about putting a lot of money in that is that it could be ripped up by a lot of heavy construction vehicles for the solar project.
Okay. I had the same comments on Big Timber until we see what happens. Whether that project is a go or no go, I would hold off from Big Timber until we see what happens. There's no sense in fixing a road and then it be demolished if that's the case. The other thing is, last time I asked, what districts were these roads in? Strato District, James Monroe, Dahlgren, you know, our districts here. And I was wondering if you had that information.
I can tell you roughly where they are. I can't tell you which district. Big Timber is over there off of Prim and Route 3. Marmion is off of Comorn on the east side. Prim is done. Woodland is on the east side of Millbank down towards Port Conway. Bald Eagle's on the list. Greenway is off of Wilmot. Dixon's already on the list. Millbank's on the other side of Port Conway, just the extension of Millbank on the other side of Port Conway. Alden is in Ms. Bender's district. And Canning Way is on the south side of Port Conway over towards the river.
So where's Bald Eagle?
Bald Eagle is off of Salem Church, next to the golf course.
So none of them are in my district.
You tell me.
Most of them are in Shiloh or James Madison. We do have some unpaved roads in my district.
Some of the others might be on your district. I don't know where they all are.
So how do you list the matters of importance?
They're just listed there by the traffic count.
Okay. And then the board decides which ones go or no go.
That's right.
Ms. Bender?
Thank you. I know I brought this to your attention before and kind of got chosen to be reached out to by the people that lived there several years ago now, is the culvert near the base on the fence line area that, and
Potomac Drive.
Potomac Drive. And there's a lot of washout. And I remember I talked to you about it, and to fix it, we would have to use some of these funds, but it does have a hefty price tag, correct?
Yeah, we looked into that, and the only way I could see to fix it, there's just what I call a sump. You know, water just collects there, and there's nowhere for it to drain. So you look at putting in a storm sewer system back towards 301, so you could get it to outfall under 301. So yeah, it'd be an expensive project, but it's a secondary route, and we can, if that's what the board wants to do, we could use this money for that.
I just wanted to bring that up because I don't know if Mr. Davis has gotten those emails. I still receive those emails. So I want to show that we have looked into it. So I don't know what anyone feels about that.
Mr. Bill, is there any way that intersection of Millbank and Port Conway that I keep talking to you about, did you get a chance to go look see what I was talking about there?
We did look into that. And just to clarify, you're talking if you're coming down Millbank towards Port Conway to make the right.
Correct.
So that's an acute angle there. I think it's a pretty easy fix, and I think we have the right way to do it. And I've got some other funds I can use for that. So I need to look into it a little bit more, but I think I've got a plan for it.
That'd be great. Thank you, sir.
Alrighty, so is there a consensus to take big timber off of that list for now?
You don't need to take it off. It'll stay on this list. This is just a list of all your gravel roads. It's not on the secondary 6-year plan right now. So as long as you don't add it, it won't become part of the secondary 6-year plan. You don't need to do, if you don't want to add big timber, you don't need to do anything.
Okay.
But based on our 2022 traffic counts, it's still the highest volume gravel road. Now, whether that was due to construction traffic that day, I can't tell you. But we'll count them again for next year. We'll have 2023 counts when we do the update next year, and we'll see where it ranks out that year.
So I'm a little confused. So aren't you bringing this in front of us to approve the roads for this plan?
We're required to update the secondary 6-year plan annually because the county receives more than $100,000 total in the plan. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to add a project every year. So if you don't want to add anything, like I said, we've got our work to do with projects that were previously added. So Bald Eagle, we probably won't get to it next year, but it'll either be next year or the summer of 26. So you've got time. That was such a big ticket item that it takes a while for the funding to accumulate. So you've got time to make the decision. If you don't want to add anything tonight, you don't lose anything. We're going to do this all over again next year. So we can look at big timber then, or we could look at another route then, or we could look at something completely different. But the dollars don't go away. We still have work we're still waiting to get Bald Eagle done. And we're going to do Dixon this year. So you don't lose anything by just deferring your decision.
Okay.
I think is the challenge looking at this. You think they're working on this? Is that what the issue is, or is that we were looking at wondering like, hey, you're working on this, so why are we looking at it? We're not going to work on it.
All of y'all are confusing me. So I thought this was the list and order of priorities of the roads that would be paid under the 600 numbers.
No, this is just the list of the opportunity. So these are all the roads that are in the county that aren't prioritized, other than the 3 that have the Y in the column under the 6-year improvement plan. Those 3 have already been added. So that's Prim, which we finished last week. It's Bald Eagle, which will take a few more years to accumulate the funding. And then it's Dixon Lane, which is funded this year. If we go back.
Can you take the Y off the big timber?
The Y is not on big timber. The Y is on Bald Eagle.
Big timbers don't even
No,
Big Timber's the first one, 647. So 625 is Prim Road from Stony Knoll to Big Timber.
Okay,
Those are
thank you.
just the stop and start.
I was looking at the wrong columns.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. The name of the road is in the left column, and then the two in the from is it. But these are the routes. So there you can see the green column there that says previous funds. That shows just that all the funding was accumulated for that project. And there's no funding on that project. That's how we completed it this year because we had all the funding to do it. Dixon Lane, there we go. There's a $111,000 estimate. We've got $25,000 in previous funds. And then July of this year, $85,000 hits. And that'll complete the $111,000 estimate for that road. So we can work on it come July. We'll have all the money we need to work on it. And then Bald Eagle is kind of the same thing. It's just carried out. So right now I'm carrying that out to fiscal year 28, which is July of 27. So that's what I'm saying is it's 24 now. Based on the way that funding looks, we've got a couple of years, 2-3 years before we need to do anything else because we're concentrating on Bald Eagle.
And just for clarification, this money is collected from the phone bill, correct?
Right.
Your phone bill?
The telefees are right-of-way usage fees, and the unpaid road funds, which is the bottom line there, is state funding to hard service.
So it takes a little while to get the pot of money.
Right. So you're getting, $158,000 a year. Just takes a while to accumulate it. But once we finish Dixon, we're going to start looking at Bald Eagle and doing some of the preliminary engineering work, figuring out how many pipes we have to replace, how much stone is there, how much stone do we need to add, and we'll get those costs. And that 590 number is going to come down a little bit, and we're going to be able to move that up. Now, I'm not going to promise you where we're going to move it up, beyond summer of 26, but I'm pretty sure we'll get it at least by then.
Thank you.
So we do need to make a motion to adopt the plan as presented or as amended, whatever you're.
I'll make a motion to adopt the VDOT secondary 6-year plan, the FY 25-23 as presented.
Second.
Second. Hold tight a minute. Motion was made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion on the 25-30?
Could we repeat the motion, please? I apologize.
Made a motion to adopt the VDOT secondary 6-year plan, the FY 25-30 as presented.
It was seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Chair votes aye. Thank you. Action items 5-02, Department of Finance and Procurement, Ms. Cook, Barnesfield Park Playground.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. At the April 16th meeting, I presented the Barnesfield Playground replacement that was approved as part of the FY 23-24 CIP budget. I'm here tonight to make staff recommendations for the county to issue a notice of award to Cunningham Recreation in the amount of $124,976.22. Authorize execution of a construction services agreement with Cunningham Recreation in the amount of $124,976.22 and establish the project budget as presented.
Okay, is there a motion?
I have a couple questions before. Ma'am, on that, in reading the agreement or the contract, two things. It said the price was good for 30 days, but it was dated 21 December. Did we confirm they're still going to support this price?
As far as I know, they'll still support this price.
And then the other thing is I noticed that if we pay with the cash order discount, we get a discount of 3%, which would cover the freight cost. We actually end up, it saves like $3,600. Are we able to do that?
That's something I would have needed to ask the finance director, and she just stepped out.
Okay. If so, if we could do that, then I think it'd be good to save a few $1,000s.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Verzavi, can you put your 2 cents in on that one?
To be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to look at that.
All right, is there any other questions? So, Mr. Stroud, you can, if you make a motion with those 2 items in it, it could be specific to approval, considering those 2 items on, with it.
Yes, sir. So, I wouldn't say it's a game changer. We can't save the $3,000. I would just say if it's possible, I would like to see us do it. And as far as the price being good, that, that'll either happen or it won't happen. I'll have to, go back and renegotiate. So I would make the motion that we approve the 050724 board report Marshall Playground model, which is 0502 for the Department of Finance, for the amount of $124,976.22.
Well, I would like to add the amendment that they'll support the price that they gave us. See, we seem to be getting gouged on people raising their prices on us. So that's my amendment. If it's accepted,
I'll second.
properly second. Any discussion? Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman?
I've had the people who are in, have they been out to view the property itself to see where it's going to go? I mean, because I have sat in the seats and I do watch things come back and it's like, well, we need $50,000 more for X. And then I watch those things happen constantly. And that's some things we're trying to avoid. So when I see comments at the bottom, like site must be clear, level free of obstruction accessible, site should permit installation of equipment, purchaser shall be responsible for unknown conditions such as buried utilities, tree stumps, bedrock, any concealed materials or conditions that may result in additional cost. Those things always kind of jump out at me. I just wonder, have they been out there to kind of survey, look at the land to see where it's going to go, or is this, they're just kind of, or do we know what kind of obstructions could possibly be in the way, or?
As far as I know, there shouldn't be anything in the way. They are removing the existing playground equipment and replacing it with the new.
It's going to go right in the same spot then?
Exactly.
All right. That's all I had.
Mr. Stewart?
Mr. Chairman, could you amend that motion just to say in a form acceptable to the county attorney? I have to look at these and just make sure they're.
I'd like to amend the amended motion to form acceptable to the county attorney, excuse me.
Second.
We have the main motion and the 2 amendments. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor by roll call? Stallings?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Okay, I'm an aye too, but I just want to make sure that it's clear what we voted on. We voted on that to pay that amount of money with no price increase and to be checked by the county attorney.
Absolutely. The agreement will go before the county attorney.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next one's 509, which is Food Services Fund Balance Special Plan Board Report, School Board Approval and Excess Balance Corrective Action Plan.
So at the last board meeting, I brought before you an item for approval, not realizing that the whole entire cafeteria fund needed to be approved, or I would have to come back for every single item on the list. So I am requesting that the Board of Supervisors approves the King George County Schools cafeteria fund balance as presented.
So I thought the school board approved
the school board approved the spend plan for the cafeteria fund, but because it is a fund balance, it still requires the Board of Supervisors approval.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none by roll call, Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Bender.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. 503, interim county attorney. Mr. Stewart. Brown Tower lease.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So this was the Crown Castle Telecommunications lease that I brought to you all at the last meeting for your information and thought. And Mr. Savi and I have discussed it. He's the financial whiz, and I'm not. I'm the legal guy. But it seems to me, unless you all want to pick an option tonight, that it may be prudent to not accept what they offer us and maybe go back to them and see if we can do a little better. So that's what I'm asking the board, if you'd like us to do that, or there are three options here that you all can pick one if you so choose. This is, remember, 10 years left on their current lease at the middle school. And they like to have certainty in business, so they want another 30 years in 5-year increments. And these are the offers that they have made to either rent or purchase an interest in the ground. But I think we ought to try.
Well, my opinion on the matter is not to purchase, because that's part of the plan for the access road through that away, or the campus for the middle school, high school, preschool. So I'd still want to continue the lease. Anybody else have anything else to put in on that?
In the Marine Corps, we were taught to don't make a decision until you have to make it. So we don't have to make a decision tonight, then I wouldn't.
I just asked the board to let us try to go back and see if we can do a little better with them.
Yes, sir.
As far as I understand, this was their first offer.
I would agree to that. How about everyone else?
I concur.
Well, that's the agreement, consensus of the board. Go back and
Without objection, I think is fine. You all, if everybody agrees that you want us to do that, that's what we will do.
yes, please.
Sure. Negotiate further.
Alrighty, discussion items 5.5, community engagement. Ms. Amy Southall, Jazz in the Country, board report and TAC application.
Good evening, members of the board. So I'm going to do a brief overview of this event. You already heard about this in March. They pulled their application and then reassessed it and amended it, and that's what you see before you in your packet. But essentially, Jazz in the Country, this will be their 5th annual event. It's held at Mount Bethel Retreat. It'll be on September 28th this year. And the applicant, Ms. Waters, is here, so if you have any questions after I do my little spiel, she'll be here to answer questions as well. Essentially, their amended request was for $40,000. The TAC recommended the same request of $25,000, and staff maintained their same recommendation of $15,000. But essentially, Jazz in the Country is an all-day event. They bring in arts and culture to King George. It's typically a regional one-day tourism event, so we don't get too many lodging, but there is some lodging in with the event as well. But I'm happy to answer any other questions, and Ms. Waters is here as well.
I'm going to ask you a direct question. How much money is left in the TAC?
So with Discovery, we discovered that there was some miscommunication with the Tourism Advisory Committee about the understanding of how they were spending their funds. And with the assistance of Mr. Razavi as well as Ms. Grapes, we discovered that we have not been accounting for those funds for a direct line item in our budget. It's just been coming directly from the tourism fund. And the line item that Ms. Grapes was asked to use to fund anything through this grant process, that is like right around $65,000 every year. Every year we spend over that. The last few years it has been well over 100,000. So with that in account, we are pretty much with the approval of staff recommendation, and obviously it would be more if you approve their request. We would be over budget for next year due to the already approval of funds that have happened for past applications. That would put us right at 65,000. That includes the fireworks that were approved. We have annual grass cutting that Ms. Fish and I are trying to figure out and amend and figure out, but with annual grass cutting that is associated with a TAC application from the 300th anniversary in 2020. That's been coming out of the tourism fund. We also approved those Christmas lights as well as trees for Hop Yard Trail. So adding this 15,000 would put us right at the 65,000. The plan right now is the Tourism Advisory Committee did request for Ms. Bender as Acting County Administrator and Vice Chair, as well as Mr. Sullins as at-large representative to come to their next meeting on May 15th and discuss next course of action, whether or not we want to, what path we want to go down. And moving forward, whether we want to be more specific to different events, whether we want to make this a different process on how we review grants as well. So that's kind of the point we're in, and the plan is to, once we have that meeting, wait for Mr. Smolnick to start, get him on board and get him to understand, and then we'll have a comprehensive thing to present to the board as a whole, and you guys can discuss at that point. Happy to answer any other questions about that as well.
That's the one thing I wanted to point out, that you have been looking at, and you do have you're working on a course of action.
Correct.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
In reading over the application, I understand there's a class associated with this that the kids can sign up for. Is there a cost for the children to take this class, or the students, I should say?
Ms. Waters?
No, okay.
I believe there's not, and I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that started last year, was when that started. And she wrote in her presentation for last year's event that there were about 60 students that participated last year in that.
Any questions?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to, how much revenue does this bring in for you guys every year?
I reviewed your presentation from last year, so if you can correct anything that I'm going to share.
Just curiosity.
So essentially, the previous years, I have the past 5 years of request numbers. Last year, they requested 25,000, which is why TAC recommended the 25,000. The prior year to that was 20,000. The prior year to that was 15. And the prior year to that, which was their first year, was 6,000. And so last year, if I estimated correctly based off of a revenue, it was about 300 participants or so last year. And the prior year was also 237, and the average of her revenue that she brought in based off of our numbers. So tickets are in between $75 and $85 for the event, and I calculated how much we would be spending based off of those participants of the last 2 years, and it's essentially from our grant dollars around $85 as well. So they pay $85 for a ticket, and then the county is essentially paying $85 per participant as well. So to collectively, it's around 170.
And the request right now is for 40,000.
40,000. And that includes, the original application was 30,000. The amended was including their some of the entertainment funds they were requesting. Once the Tourism Advisory Committee was aware of the fact that we're kind of in this limbo of budgeting, that we have kind of been doing it in a misinformed route, and we're trying to work on correcting that, that's when they were like, well, let's go ahead and just recommend the same number that was recommended last year and was passed last year, which that's where the 25,000 came from. And then staff was assessing just covering marketing costs, which was 15,000.
So when will it be self-supporting?
Ms. Waters? Yeah,
Come up to the podium, please.
Good evening. Good evening. That question is really the reason we went back and pulled the application after the last meeting, because we wanted to know whether we were actually meeting the county requirements for tourism. So we looked at the strategic plan as it relates to tourism and found that we meet, I think there was objectives 1 and 2 one dealing with inviting and encouraging visitation and tourism to historic properties here in the county, and the other was providing recreation and leisure. So having said that, we hoped and would ask that you consider us fulfilling part of strategic plan as a basis for your continued support. We appreciate and of course are grateful for the support that we've received every year. And so we would hope that it would not be a consideration that you would not support this effort as we bring tourism, not just for the festival, but year round through patronage at Mount Bethel Retreat Center. I hope that answers your question.
No, ma'am, it did not. When will the county's TAC fund not be necessary in order to support the jazz in the country?
I honestly don't have an answer for that. We rely quite a bit on the marketing funds to get the word out. As you know, marketing costs, radio, news, print signs, all of these things, the costs increase every year. Without those funds, we certainly would not have the exposure that we've enjoyed thus far. So we don't see a time that we would not come to the county, because that is part of our mission to encourage year-round tourism in King George County.
Ma'am, so in the application, the estimated attendance is 500. And based on Ms. Southall's numbers, we haven't came really close to that. The closest was last year with the 300 attendees, but that's still only 3/5. We're still 200 short. So is there a way to figure out a way to trim the cost to get it back within budget? Or is it
Well, this is why tourism and marketing is important, because even in 5 years, there are a lot of people who haven't heard of Mount Bethel. There are a lot of people who haven't heard of King George. And there are a lot of people who haven't heard of Jazz in the Country, the event itself. And so we depend on increased marketing so that we can have a broader reach outside of the Northern Neck area to bring folks to enjoy the county and all the recreational opportunities that are here.
So how many people attended last year?
It was a little over 300.
And so they're $85 a ticket?
The day of the event, 85. Right now, they're $75. That's for 6 hours of entertainment. Of course, we have food vendors. We have a marketplace as well.
You all get money from the food vendors? Do you get a portion of their sales?
We charge a flat fee for all vendors, and that's $200 per vendor. And then they keep their take.
I'm just trying to see these numbers.
That should be reported through the revenue office, though. The tax revenue should be reported.
Yeah.
And pardon, because Ms. Puckett did make mention that sometimes those food truck people will claim their taxes back at the county in which they live. She said that in the last time we brought this up. So, you know, I'm for food trucks. I'm going to bring up something to get rid of them. I see them all over the place. I love them, but I do want them to, you know, my restaurant, we pay a meals tax. If you come in on your wheels, then I want the taxes going to us, to the county. You know, it's where it should be going. I would make a recommendation that we just cut, you know, roughly $30,000 from the FRA. And that if we do consider doing something today, maybe we just take that money and apply it to this case. It's just a recommendation. We just saved it today, so why not?
So did we appropriate? We didn't appropriate, did we, sir? We didn't appropriate yet.
No, you did not. You moved it to contingency, all but $1.
Right. So what's everyone's feeling on that, Mr. Davis's thought pattern? So you bring in $25,000 in ticket sales approximately, and then about how much do you get for the vendors?
That varies every year, of course. I can't remember the number last year. There might have been 10 vendors. Do you remember?
So $2,000, $27,500. And what's your budget?
And of course, operating costs eat away at that as well. So the overall budget is 103,000.
Where are the operating costs captured at?
It is not a part of the marketing budget. We submitted the marketing budget as requested. The overall budget itemizes every other cost that is that's involved, and that is stage, sound, performers, backline, which is the instruments for performers, that sort of thing.
So I want to support the whole thing, but here's my problem, is I have to be truthful. So started out at 6,000 and gone, now we're up to a request of 40,000. So it seems to grow in leaps and bounds but I don't see for a one-day event of how we're getting any tourism or any I mean, I've been there, and I don't know, it's a great event. That's all I can say. It's a great event, but I don't know what the benefit is to King George. I don't know of anybody coming back and spending money and, but I'm concerned about the elevation of fun, what I'm concerned about.
So if I may address that, it is more than a one-day event. The patronage and rentals at Mount Bethel Retreat Center, since we have started, since 2019, has increased 60%. And that is families, groups coming to Mount Bethel from March to October. And so how did they find out about Mount Bethel? Through Jazz in the Country. So we hope that you consider that as well. And when those people come, they frequent gas stations, they frequent eateries, the Walmarts, the Food Line, all of that. And so we hope that that will be part of your consideration as well. Increasing costs this year, we thought we would ask if we could include part of the operating. That has been denied every year, but we figured we would ask for consideration for that as well.
So the folks that come in through the year, do they pay?
They rent the facility, some for a day, some for, say, for a family reunion. They might come, they might utilize a local caterer, they might bring their own food, they might come and shop locally to have food to prepare at the facility. Some there for a week, some for a weekend. And I believe there's, we counted 16 or 17 towns outside of King George that have come to use that facility just in 2023 alone.
So the rental is a religious organization or religious group that owns that facility, right?
It is.
So those funds go to that organization. They don't pay tax on that, and don't pay. So what I'm getting at is, I would love to know how you can quantify the Walmart spending and the gas spending and the other spending. So when I look at these numbers, they get bigger and bigger. But if I could get numbers that say, that we're bringing in this much sales tax from Walmart for folks buying whatever they're buying or whatever, it'd be much easier for me to bite off. You see what I'm saying? Right now, I'm just seeing it escalate and it worries me. I mean, I want to support it and I don't want to say no, but you got to help me find a way to say yes. Is what I'm saying.
Well, and I'm not sure. Actually, I would doubt that Mount Bethel keeps track of outside shopping or other patronage, you know, other eateries or whatever outside of them. I'm sure they don't keep that. But I can guarantee you, anyone driving from DC, Baltimore, even farther, is going to get gas. They're going to have snacks. If they don't want to prepare food, I mean, I live in Maryland. I have visited Mount Bethel and bought food and taken it there because I'm not cooking. And so it is hard to quantify.
And maybe that's something that we could do better. This isn't all you, this is us brainstorming in front of you, okay? So maybe we could do a better job too of like reaching out to the hotels and things in the area and kind of getting an idea of what the uptick is and have them track how many people are coming in so in the future we get an idea like if they're packing out a couple of hotels or a hotel and people are coming out of town and staying, I mean, that's revenue, you know. So there are ways that we could do better at probably tracking that and reaching out to some of our partners and just kind of figuring out what that uptick is. You know, I'm for supporting you in doing this. It's in my district. You know, I don't know if $40,000 is the number, but I do think that we want to walk away from here I do at least being a partner with you guys and continue this. I know it's been growing over the years, and I do see the traffic uptick when it's in town. And if I try to get into Walmart, I do see the uptick in traffic. So I do know something's going on. There's got to be a better way for us to kind of quantify it and maybe track it a little bit for the future. And that's all of us.
Go ahead, sir.
So thanks for coming. Actually, it's going to be the same questions repeated like for 5 years. I think, Ms. Southall, I think you've got the numbers. This year, you're estimating 500 guests. We know what you're asking for in terms of the cost. For last year, how much did we give you guys?
25.
How many people did you have
A
attend?
little over 300, a little over 300.
Okay, and what did you ask for last year? Okay.
That's what we approved. We always ask for more.
Sure. And the same question for the year before and the year before. I'm trying to establish a glide slope. What about attendance each one of those years? Okay, gotcha. And then was your estimate for attendance about 500 people each of those years?
The last couple of years, this year and last year, yes.
Okay.
Our inaugural year was just over 100, I believe. And I don't remember 21, couple hundred.
Mr. Davis, I would rather give the money to that organization and group than the FRA. So that was a good suggestion. Makes it more palatable for me. So I would say $30,000 would be the number because that's what FRA number is. Doesn't everybody?
I would also point out that the FRA money was between 26 and $27,000. I mean, it's a small difference, but there is a difference.
I guess we go back to the escalating costs. There is a point where we can't keep escalating the costs. And I've mentioned that before. So I would not be for 30 because then we're escalating every year and there does need to be a point where they start to pay their own way.
I concur with Ms. Bender's comments there because there's other things that are going to happen. We're still earlier in the year. There's other things that are happening. You know, we're already depleting it. So, and you know, I don't know if we're pulling people because I looked at the application. We're trying to pull people from Pennsylvania, and I'm not saying they don't come, but whenever you're casting a very wide net and only pulling 300 people, I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but I've had more businesses fail than succeed, and at some point I kind of have to throw in a towel. So, and I'm not saying throw in a towel. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we have to look at our appetite and try to figure out, you know, where we want to put our eggs in what basket. So, I'm not for the full $30,000, if that's what you're saying.
So I would say that on their behalf, when they came to us, there was money available and they pulled their application. So it's kind of a punishment that they pulled their application because now the money's been spent out, but they would have been approved probably for the 30,000 at the time that they originally came. So that's something to think about. I'm trying to help you. I'm also trying to do money down and trying to bring in revenue for the county and all these things combined and trying to figure out how we all can come to a conclusion that would be helpful.
Every year, we appreciate the support because it has been growing support every year. We cannot do what we do without the support of King George County. We didn't pull the application per se, it's just on hold because we wanted to look at what we're doing and really assess, are we meeting the expectations of economic development, of tourism? Because, you know, it can be a blind thing, like every year just change the date, change a couple numbers. So we really looked at the strategic plan, and I hope that means something to you, that we are mindful of the monies that the county is so generously giving us.
So, you know, one, I would like to see that operating budget because that's the majority of the money. And I'd like to have visibility of that to see what's going on there before I approve a larger amount. And based on what I was told, you've got the individual pays 75 or 85, the county pays 75 or 85. That's not the best margin. And whenever somebody's buying gas, you know, I don't know how many people's in a vehicle, but if you had 2 people in a vehicle, that's $170 worth of gas. And we only get tax revenue back off the gas. And that doesn't include, you know, it's just, there's a lot of investment there for a return. So, I mean, if we put a spreadsheet together on this, I don't think we're going to come out ahead on that. I think we're going to come out in a hole, in a big hole. So, you know, look at the operating budget and do a little more analysis.
Mr. Collins, if we had voted on this in March, I was not going to be 30. I was going to suggest 15.
So here we are.
Well, so, Mr. Chair, as well, I'd like to, what I do like about the event is everything we do, and I talk this all the time, is everything we do here is in Sealston. It's right on the county line. And so those things, whether it's for the fire department or whether it's whatever it is, they come in, 4th of July, they're not spending the money in King George. You know, they're coming across the line, they're going to Sealston and they're rolling back out. At least to me, this is something it's making people come through the town. It's our own fault, and we're going to get there. Trust me, that we haven't built King George in a way that people are going to go through it and want to stay and want to go to a shops and want to go see what we have to offer. We're going to have to develop those things. So I'm for it because it's bringing people into the heart of our county. And there is going to be, I think that we'll get back what we're invested in it as far as tax revenue and things. I think that we will. Maybe not 40, but I think that we'll earn it back. But what I'd like to really discuss at a future date is what we can do to partner, because it is a beautiful area down there. I used to play down there when I was a kid, and everyone was always nice to me. But just figure out what we can do maybe to hold more community events where you're at, which will bring attention to you, which we could do as a partnership and to bring more things that we can work together with them to bring people into more of that area in the future, not just this one, but things on down the line, you see, maybe not something else. So, maybe it's I don't know, barbecue cook-off or whatever we want to do, right? Just something to put people out there by the water on a pretty day, at a beautiful area. So
we're all for that.
those are the things that I'm when I'm thinking about investing my money, those are the things I'm looking at too, is what am I getting and then what can we do down the line to build, to do work on some things together. And she's the perfect lady to get together with and work on that with, and she'll come and we'll have ideas and she'll come up with them too. So that's what I'm looking at for my investment. That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
Mr. Sullins?
One more question, ma'am. I noticed the nine-member churches that own and operate this, they're all in the Washington, D.C. area. Do you also approach those churches or the local government in Washington, D.C. and ask for support as well?
So the churches in the association are actually throughout Maryland, D.C. and Virginia. Those most active are Virginia. Little interaction, to my knowledge anyway. We are a separate entity altogether from the association. So we have no direct regular interaction with all of them. Of course, they are aware of the event. We advertise in their annual conference booklet, that sort of thing. So I hope that's answers.
So the so the beef eaters, do you have the number, how much was given to the beef eaters? Firefighters? Yeah, that didn't help my argument. So what's the will of the board? Is there a way to come to a consensus on this matter?
How would people feel about just matching what we did last year?
Which was how much?
Was it 25?
35.
You're a Christian, don't lie.
I'll take it back.
How about 25 and we pass the collection plate? Okay, see what happens.
Well, this has to come out of next year's funds, correct?
So let's first decide on the number. So 25 is a number that's been put out there by Mr. Davis. Is anybody, so Mr. Sullins, Mr. Binder?
I would like one thing to make sure that there's a plan of action, we work together, that we're not funding the majority of it every year. That's my one thing that I have.
So are you good or not,
I'd rather 20, but I can go with 25.
Mr. Stroud?
I'd like to see the operating budget. Over the last 4 years, have the people, the performers, or has the cost of those things increased or not?
Of course, but we keep it, there's only a certain amount that we pay. Some performers, no matter the genre, and I think I've mentioned this before, command 10, 20, 30,000. We have never paid more than about 3,500. 4,000, I think, is really the max for a performer.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that we fund the Jazz in the Country requests for $25,000. And we work with Mr. Razavi, Mid-South Hall, to make sure that we fund this appropriately within state and county law.
All right, is there a second? It's properly seconded. Any more discussion on the matter? All those in favor?
Vote.
Okay, by roll call. Sullins?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Stroud?
Sure.
I'd still like to see operating budget. So if I see operating budget, I'd say aye, but I'd like to see that.
Well, the vote was for the 25,000 without anything tied to it at this point.
Then nay.
Okay, Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So 25,000. You've heard the concerns of the board this evening. So hopefully next year you'll have all those answers and all that data that would make it a much smoother ride, hopefully. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
.506, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Stephen Lemon is here and he represents Heritage Hall, and I'm gonna try to make this really brief because I know you like things that way. Back in 2005, 2006, when they built a new high school, Heritage Hall was already there, and they've been in the county for a while. They're a big employer in the county, and they do a wonderful service for the county. At that point, they made some agreement with the county, and I can't answer this question, but Mr. Lemon can, to grant some of what they owned to share access with the high school coming off of Route 3 on what is now Fox's Way. They then looked into this in the last couple years. They got a zoning determination letter from Heather Hall before she left, and it essentially said you have no public access to your facility, which obviously is a cloud on their title and is concerning. So I talked with Mr. Lemon, and we went through this, and I think they have a very reasonable ask, and that is that either the county ask VDOT to take in all of Fox's Way so that they will now be abutting on a public road, or the county give them an easement to get to the public portion of Fox's Way. From what I have learned and looked into this, this was always the intent, was for the county and Heritage Hall to partner in this. I think they committed to give up property for that purpose, but for some reason it just never was followed through. It seems to me the most sensible thing to do would be to ask VDOT to take it in, because I'm not sure why the county wants to take care of it or anybody else. But if they won't, then I think that they would appreciate an easement to the public road, because right now they don't have it. And that's what was always anticipated. So Mr. Lemon is here if you have questions or if he wants to add anything. The only other thing I would say is regardless of the action you take, we have to have a public hearing because anytime you encumber or sell public property or give it away, you got to have a public hearing. And that's even if you give stuff to VDOT.
So thank you, sir, for coming. It seems pretty simple to me that ask VDOT to take it over. If they don't do it, then we give them an easement because it, I remember that agreement, actually. It was like 20 some years ago, maybe right when they were building the high school. So does anybody have any, what are you all's feelings on that matter?
I concur with what you just said. Absolutely. Has to be done. If not, get them an easement.
Mr. Davis?
I agree.
Sullins?
If we ask VDOT to take it over and they do so, is there going to be any encumbrances on the high school that's going to cause any problems with sporting events, normal day-to-day access from the teachers, students, whatnot? Or is it just they're going to maintain it and all as well?
Well, they can't stop the ingress and egress of the high school, so they would take it and maintain it. If not, then we'd give them an easement. But we have to have a public hearing first, but it seems to be a pretty simple solution to me.
No, I'm just trying to make sure we look at both sides of it, but yeah, I'm in favor of it.
If VDOT took it in, it would be a public way. And I don't think we can ask David Beal that question if you'd like, just for comfort, but I'm not aware that anybody has the authority to block a public way. The only thing I thought of, I don't know if the sheriff's office has any issue with it because it's next to the high school, but I think we can take measures regarding that as well. Either way, they've got to have access to their property, and I think that's what the county always intended.
So I think that we're moving forward towards a public hearing. Do we have to stay on this matter, sir, or would you like to?
If not, all I would say is thank you so much for your consideration of the matter. I believe, as you all know, Heritage Hall is an asset to the community. Over $5 million plus economic impact, and that's just salaries alone. And we appreciate your willingness to accommodate this and really complete what was, as you mentioned, Mr. Collins, intended in the beginning. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with the county to resolve the matter.
All right, thank you, sir. Could you set that for public hearing?
Yes, sir. If you all would just authorize the county to have advertise this for public hearing. And I think we can do it either or. We can say either to convey to VDOT or in the alternative, convey an easement to Heritage Hall. So we only have to one hearing.
So moved.
We have a budget set for those public hearings because they cost then posting them.
Yep.
Good question.
We have to pay for every one of those advertisements in the public hearings, and that's how the newspaper actually are making their money these days, because they're full of public hearings. But we're required by law to have a public hearing, so we can't get away from that. And I guess your question is, do we have a budget for public hearings? And the answer is no.
It gets expensive.
It's very expensive. How much? Do you know how much this year, Ms. Fish?
Probably about $3,000 to $4,000 so far in advertising. The last public hearing cost about $1,100.
Last year it was like $60,000, right?
It was extremely high.
So we have to look at community development would be able to tell us if we have in there's requirements that require us to put up. We have to put a sign up, which gets more costly. We have to put the sign up because there's speculation, or not speculation, there's specifications on the size of the sign, the letters, the wording, and stuff like that.
You have to post a sign on the property
every 100 foot,
and you have to run, yes, and you have to run an ad in a newspaper of general circulation 2 weeks prior to.
Yep.
Those are the specifications.
Heritage Hall want to help out with that? think he's going to say yes.
We would welcome the opportunity to discuss that with Mr. Stewart. I would only comment that we helped out in 2006 for requesting via the property and did so on the understanding that the county was going to dedicate the road at the same time. But yes, sir, we are happy to engage in a conversation about.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I didn't make that clear. They did dedicate property with an understanding, and I think the county fell through on their part of the understanding.
Right, so it's the county's responsibility at this point.
Having said that, we certainly want to be a partner in the solution.
Well, this board wants to make this right, but we're also very tight, so. Thank you, sir.
You have a motion and a second.
Oh,
There's a motion. I don't know that it was seconded.
can you restate the motion?
As stated, it was so moved. At the time, he had explained what the motion should include, and I said so moved.
Okay, so for the public record, I'm going to have to know what the motion
You
is.
say that again?
Mr. Chairman, that the Board of Supervisors authorize the county to have a public hearing regarding potentially asking VDOT to take in that portion of Fox's Way, which is not public, or granting an easement to Heritage Hall to the public road.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Thank you. Take care, sir. Informational items, April 2024 FOIA requests.
Got one other thing.
Sure. Missed one.
I missed one.
Yes.
Oh. Mr. Stewart missed 12507, which is Rollins property tax map parcel 24-160 Rectory Lane, and a signed agreement 2023 resolution to authorize sale agreement for residual parcel on Rectory Lane purchase agreement.
Mr. Chairman, you recall, I think it was in December, that the county voted to purchase what they thought was a little sliver of land over here near the county office building for Ms. Rollins. We can't find the land. We can't find where there actually is a sliver. We've met with Mrs. Rollins. We've looked at her plats. The former county attorney sent this to a closing attorney in Fredericksburg, who's been very diligent about it, and we just simply don't know where this piece of land is because the county, they put some pieces together, they changed some tax maps, and so the question is, do you want to hire a surveyor and try to find this little sliver of land? Do you want to just get a quitclaim deed from Ms. Rollins, which says, if I own anything, here it is, but I'm not guaranteeing you anything. Typically, you would get a general warranty deed, which you go back on, but we just kind of need some direction as to how you want to go forward. It was only $3,000, and so I don't know that the county wants to spend a fortune on it, and surveyors aren't cheap, but the only way we're going to find this piece of land is if we hire a survey and try to figure it out.
Well, I know exactly where it is, but I'm not a surveyor. But I'm going to recuse myself because I want to buy that piece of land. I'll give it over to you.
What are the thoughts on that?
And you might, yeah. Thank you for handing it over to the vice chair.
We weren't here.
Well, I can explain a little bit. So there's a little piece of property.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how big it is and why we're buying
It's
it.
not that big. And it was part of the Smoot Library redo. And some of us, including myself, did enjoy putting campaign signs on that little sliver of property over the years. So
Are you talking about right there beside Napa?
it's like across from the edge of the Historical Society in Jer.
A little out of control.
Not a very big piece. I'm going to put out I would not mind the quick claim and just doing it that way.
There's no guarantee with a quitclaim. It just, what that deed says is whatever I own, you get.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody seems to believe that based upon transactions over the years, there literally was a sliver left there that Mrs. Rollins still owned.
15 feet by 6 feet.
Maybe,
So you could never build anything. Only thing you could put is,
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I can't confirm that.
You put a lemonade stand.
I can't confirm that. It's 6 feet by 8 feet. I can't confirm anything. We can't find it.
right? But
Why are we buying?
could never build anything on it because,
The board voted to buy it in December. So there's a contract with Mrs. Rollins to purchase it. There was a contract entered into. We are currently in default, but she is very nice. And we've talked to her and explained everything to her. We've looked at her plat. We're just trying to figure it out. And I just didn't know how much money y'all wanted to spend on this because, there's literally a sliver there.
Well,
If there's anything.
so I was a few years ago, as a part of a board, we went through looking at all the little pieces of property the county owns that they can't do anything with. And we were looking at what the county needs to get rid of these little pieces of land that need to be maintained and such.
This would be a sliver right along the road of the county property. So this is logical if the county wants to do this, to add it into what they already own. I guess what I'm trying to explain is we really can't identify what's there. I don't know that you really want to pay a surveyor. I mean, surveyors aren't cheap. And if she can only sell you what she has anyway, what she owns. That's my point. Consider just a quitclaim deed and whatever she has, county gets, or you can hire a surveyor to try to figure it out. But the county owns everything else, as I understand.
Okay, so we owned all the property around this
All the
sliver.
property around the sliver, right.
It's all part of the Smoot Library property.
So, and we don't even know if we don't own it, but
Well, she's been paying taxes on it for a lot of years, I think, and if she's been erroneously billed for taxes, she has a right to petition the county to get those taxes back. So we certainly believe that she does own something there. We just can't figure out the parameters or exactly what it is.
I understand. So right now, it can be done and over with. We do the quitclaim deed.
It's just a suggestion. It might simplify it if you just get a quitclaim deed and whatever she owned, you own. You typically don't do that. You get a general warranty deed, you get title insurance, you go through all those steps to protect your title, but she appears to be the only one that could potentially have an interest in it. The problem is you just can't identify it. So it seems to me to be a perfect situation.
Scenario.
To just get a quitclaim deed and try to keep the cost as low as possible.
So with that, I would make the motion, we get the quitclaim deed and purchase property for the amount of $3,000, if we can get that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, some of the property is in the road.
I don't know. I can't
That's what I was told a long time ago.
confirm that. I know it is.
Unfortunately, the one of the brothers that owned that property, who knew it backwards and forwards, he passed away, so we can't.
Yeah, I don't want to mislead the board. I cannot confirm what's there because we can't really identify that parcel, but she owns something there and the county owns everything else.
See, the problem is that she's been paying taxes on it. So we need to relieve her of that. And the way to do that is take ownership of the property. So we can either pay more to prove it, or we can just call it good and be done with it.
So I have a motion, properly second. Do I have any other discussion? All those in favor, well, actually, this is so I will do roll call vote. Mr. Solons?
Aye.
Mr. Collins, I'm guessing you abstain? Mr.
Aye.
Cron? Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Mr. Collins, back to you.
2024 FOIA requests, informational item Find that out. Anybody going to present this? No, sir.
This is just a synopsis of FOIA requests. I have 9 requesters and 46 requests. So each question is a FOIA request within the email. And so there's been a lot of back and forth. So there's 46 requests. That doesn't include all the emails that are back and forth. With your requesters, you can see that there's media, and then the public can see how many departments are involved with each request, if they're charged, what date it's submitted, and how many requests. And then at the bottom of the page, I have what each requester requested.
Do you know the amount of money collected?
Probably around this for April, probably around $200.
Can I ask a question, Senator Stewart? I'm asking you, as in your senator role being on FOIA council, there was a change in this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's why I didn't bring any policies back. The governor did end up signing a bill that will affect the policy that King George has. So I talked with Ms. Fish, and I was going to redraft that and bring it to you in the next meeting or so. It will take effect in July, but I didn't see any point in amending a policy now when we'd have to change it again. And I'll bring that to you at a later meeting.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you. Secondary public comment to address meeting business matters only. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so it can be properly included in the public record. Is there anyone for public comment? Is there anyone online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Has there been any written request? Already, seeing none, we'll close public comment. And the next one is the adjournment. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, May 21st, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. in the Robert H. Combs Boardroom.
Second.
Properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are now adjourned. Thank you so much.